Mark Kellner here with Higher Ground at the Washington Times. Today, a special guest, one of a couple of special guests we're going to have, Vanessa Benavente, the actress who portrays Mary, Jesus' mother, in the somewhat successful, no, the extremely hot streaming television series, The Chosen, also on DVDs and Blu-rays in just about every corner of the continent, if not the planet. Uh, how did you end up in the role? How did this come to you?
Wow. So I was just lucky enough to be submitted for it by my representative, by my manager, and I was also very fortunate to be called in for an audition, which in Hollywood sometimes it's hard because there's so many of us actors out there. Just getting an audition sometimes feels like a win. And I went in, read for them, and they had been looking for Mary for a while, and something about what I brought to the role really spoke to them, and so that's why I'm here.
And this isn't, well, for want of a better phrase, this isn't just a role. You know, this isn't some character on a soap who comes on, there's a story arc, and they're gone perhaps. What does it mean to portray this individual who's not only a character in a story, but someone from history?
It's both. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it, I guess, but also I feel like I'm somewhat lucky that nobody really knows what she looked like,
Right.
how she sounded, how she walked, and how she talked. So I have those liberties. You know, I can take those liberties where I can infuse her with a lot of my own personal traits. I can, be inspired by other people. I know I take quite a bit from my family.
Uh-huh.
I
Like what?
Well, my grandma's sister, who later kind of became my grandma because my grandma passed away. She had this quality about her, which was both almost childlike. She was always smiling and always seems like happy, but of course, she had had a tough life as well. But every time she saw you, she just hugged you, and I feel like Mary is that. Mary is a warm embrace, and she obviously loves her son, adores her son, but also she's taken in all the other disciples as her own as well. I feel like that's who she is, that generous, that giving, and that's what I think, to my eyes, makes her very inspiring.
To say the very least, are there any particular challenges, differences in a role such as this that you wouldn't have with, I don't know, an episode of Grey's Anatomy or something a little more mundane?
Well, I can think of a few, but I guess the one that stands out the most, I guess, is I don't share her age.
Right.
She's not. Actually, we're probably closer in age than you think. But being a first century woman, I'm sure she looked older than
Yeah.
a person at her age would in this day and age. But so I have to go through an hour and a half of makeup every single time. That is unheard of in television. Because time is money, and so the quicker the better. And nobody would have hired me if this were just another TV show, like on a regular, network. It would be too much trouble to go through every single time I'm camera on. So I was like, again, count my blessings, because they went with me regardless. So.
Now, you mentioned the makeup and the preparation that's involved, and you're doing most of the shooting, I would imagine, in Texas, in
Yes.
Midlothian, which, excuse me, I get choked up thinking about it. Midlothian isn't exactly a great urban area, from what I
Yeah.
understand. In
Yeah.
fact, God willing, I'll be there next Friday
Oh,
for the set
okay.
visit and get to see you folks in your element there at Camp Hoblitzell. What is it like working that remotely?
I think it's great. I mean, food options, it's not that great, but no, I kid. But I like it because, and I don't get to spend that much time as other cast members do. I'm usually there for brief periods, but I like feeling like that is almost camp chosen, right? We kind of are isolated and we live our lives during the shoot and it's I think Texas is a wonderful place too because everyone's so warm and welcoming. It's ridiculous, and our crew always takes such care of us too. It's amazing.
Well, that's great. And what is it like interacting with the others in the cast? Jonathan Rumi, I've seen some interviews. I saw an interview that he did with Bishop Robert Barron, and he comes across as a very genuine, very human sort of individual. And the story of how he got the part, he was basically down almost to his last dollar.
Yeah.
And he prayed, and things opened up. You weren't at your last dollar, were you?
But I was kind of working on different fields. Because acting was, I mean, not necessarily coming by very regularly. So I had just had a child, and
wonderful.
We had just bought a house, so we needed income, and I was working in casting, which is not too unrelated to the profession. But when I got the audition, I actually had to take an extra long lunch to get to the audition and come back, do my work, and when I got it, I had to quit my job.
Yes.
And which was a hard decision to make for a show that at the time we didn't know if I was going to do more than one episode. That was just it. And for a season, I'm not there for more than one episode. So we didn't know if there was going to be a second season. And, it was just a leap of faith, for lack of a better word.
Now, you mentioned that you brought elements of your faith journey and your faith background into the character of your family.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your spiritual life and how it influences you, if you feel comfortable doing that. If you don't, that's fine.
Yes. But I can tell you, my background is I was in Peru. Yeah. And so all my family's from there. So.
Well, it's a lovely country.
Yes, thank you.
I've not been yet, but I hope to go.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes, you should. At least once in a lifetime. Definitely.
Now, in terms of a character such as Mary, is it possible sometimes to get sort of lost in her? How do you stay grounded doing this sort of a role?
I have 2 children.
That is the best answer that I've heard in a very long time.
Yes, when you have to get home, even after a night shoot, because I take my children with me on location.
Oh, okay.
So when I shoot, they're with me back at the apartment or the hotel. And if it's been 15 hours on set, I come back at 3 a.m. I'm still up at 6:30 to be a mom. And sometimes, daddy takes over if he can, but he's also working. So it's yeah.
Is he an actor then?
Yes, he's an actor too.
Is he on the series?
He was in season 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What role?
He was one of the Pharisees. The one that says in the synagogue, there's a if God wanted him healed, he would have done it himself. He says that to Jesus. So that's like the pun on that.
Presuming that the show goes the 7 series, the 7 seasons, we know what's going to happen at the end. and before the very end. We know, at least from Scripture, what Mary has to witness. How do you prepare yourself for that?
Ay, 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 ay. I'm not sure. No, I mean, acting wise, I feel like I want to approach it in different ways,
Right.
uh, because the way I work, I usually try to see if there's something in my life that I can relate this to, right? And what happened then and how I felt, and
Right.
what I can bring that's unique, right? Because everyone has their own ways of reacting to things. But in this particular thing, it's how I've never had anything
And
remotely.
God willing, you'll never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's the one thing where you just have to kind of trust that the writers will have a really fresh take on it, and whatever it is on that page, that I have to focus on that, and
Right.
that will be compelling. And having done so many seasons, having done so much work in relationship with the relationship with Jonathan and everything,
Right.
I feel like it just seeing him on that cross will probably trigger emotions that I never would have thought.
Tell me about that relationship with Jonathan. From that interview that I saw with him, he seems like a very down to earth fellow with a great sense of humor and so on. How do you guys keep a straight face on the set?
Well, he's also very focused,
Right.
and very hardworking, and of course we laugh a lot when we can. But he is also an amazing actor and very generous also with his with what he gives.
Right.
So even if he's not on camera, he is there, and we sometimes improvise as mother and son right before the take, even if it doesn't really pertain to the scene. If we can just talk to each other and kind of hold hands.
Right.
It's amazing now that we've worked for so many years. It really connects us so fast and brings us to that moment in time that it really is so wonderful to work with.
Now, I hope my understanding is correct, but I seem to have seen somewhere something about Jonathan having difficulty going out in public because people recognize him. Do you get stopped in the street?
No, not at all. I think people,
So you're able to be anonymous.
Oh my gosh, completely. I mean, first of all, I think I Jonathan is Jonathan, of course, but I don't think I have that level of popularity. But also because most of the time people see me in all that makeup,
right, and the first century,
covered, right, with my hair covered, and then if you see me on public, I have like one child in one hand and the other child on a hip, and so it doesn't really occur to you that someone in that situation might be the same person as in the show. So I think in that respect,
well, that's great. Filming, I think, on season 4 hasn't exactly started yet, but it's starting.
Yes,
it has.
It has started. Yes.
Okay, so what I'll see next week, I'm sure, will be part of that out there in the middle of Texas. I'll be sure to hydrate.
Yes. Just want to do that.
What has been your greatest takeaway from doing this series? What has spoken to you about it?
Oh my gosh. That's a very good question. I think working on this really, everyone's just so passionate about this.
Right.
And I feel like that is so inspiring as a creator or as an artist, where the the trope, I guess, is follow your dreams, right? But it's true. If you believe something in something so profoundly,
Right.
that you can at least put it out in the world and see
Right.
if maybe it resonates with people. Because I think that's basically what Dallas did. Dallas
Yes.
just put a put something that spoke to him so loudly in his heart. He put it out there and hoped that it would um, find an ear and a heart, and that people would respond to it. And it has in ways that I don't think even he could have imagined. So, and this after being, not being necessarily successful in his previous endeavors and in the same thing. So,
Right.
just really trusting that what he did was worth the wait.